No. I think Alexander was going to do the presentation. Is that correct?
Yes. Just having a bit of a nightmare with the computer that decided to restart as we were logging back in and was not allowing me to defer. If possible, we can start now. If Chris, I shared the deck with you. It's in the Teams chat.
Okay.
If you can open and share that, yeah, I can talk us through everything.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not seeing it in the Teams chat.
If you guys need time to configure your technology, we could jump to another agenda item and come back to you. I know Elizabeth's probably thinking, oh.
Okay, yes. Can we please do that? Can you maybe 5-10 more minutes and this computer will be back to where it needs to be.
Here for 10 minutes, maybe. Okay, we already have. So it's like, okay. If we'll have you stay on the line in maybe 15 or 20 minutes before we get to you. So stay in contact, and we're going to move to our next agenda item.
Thank you.
Which is a bit of an update for us on something we promised to the committee and to the board and to the community, which was taking a look holistically at issues related to 70th through 72nd Street. There are numerous issues, as we've discussed, that are going on that many of you are highly involved with, some of you less so, but we thought we would take each of them in turn, just very quickly. And DOT, we're happy to have you on the line. I know Colleen is out this week, but if one of you could just let us know which of you is here on behalf of Colleen so that we can call on you as needed, that would be great. Could one of you just jump on really quickly to let us know which one of you will be speaking on behalf of Colleen?
Jackie, if you were there, she had mentioned that you might be that person.
I'm here. I'm joined by Rafael Escano. He is going to be leading the discussion. Rafael.
Okay. Great. Okay. So I think you're involved in each of these three items, but we wanted to start first. There have been a lot of emails going around and a lot of things circulated of late about 71st Street. I don't know if we have representatives from the Block Association on 71st Street here tonight. This is about the bike corral. I know this is now back in DOT's hands. Do you have any updates for us or anything? We also have our council member, Gail Brewer, here. So we're just trying to get an update for the community's sake on the emails that have been going on about the bike corral. For those of you who have been following this, CB7 passed a resolution in support of moving a bike corral that is currently situated on the corner of 71st and Amsterdam, and moving it to a location that allowed for more pedestrian flow on the sidewalk. To date, that has not been done. However, the DOT has installed a bike corral on the southwest corner of 70th and Amsterdam, which is not being very heavily trafficked or used, at least to my anecdotal evidence, and I think many others. So we're trying to figure out, my understanding is that the Block Association is still very much pushing to have an alternative to move those bikes that are currently congregating and there on the corner and stacked 3 and 4 times what the capacity seems to be, an alternative place for those. So DOT, and I guess largely Jackie, that's you. Could you maybe just let us know what the latest is and if we can perceive any next steps, et cetera?
Sure. So the latest that I have, and apologies, my foster just decided to burst in. Regarding the bike corral, we will not be moving forward with this installation at this location due to the presence of 2 manhole covers in the curb lane. You know, we can't block these utility covers. So
Jackie, we lost you.
that's the latest I have from Colleen. I don't know, Rafael, if you had anything further.
We can't hear Rafael.
Okay. So that, we heard that via email, then we got a subsequent note from the 71st Street Block Association, and Jessie, I think you have those photos. I don't know if you can share them.
Give me a second.
yeah.
everyone.
So our understanding is they are very much looking to try to find some sort of compromise and to work with DOT on this. We're not going to get in the middle. I don't know, Gail, if you have your office. I know they've been working on this and you've convened the broader group. Yeah.
Erica working from
Erica,
Linda's office is.
yes, I don't know if Erica's on the call.
I'm on.
I promoted her.
I just for that part, because the assembly member wrote a letter, I think it might be 2 years ago now, requesting a redesign of that area just because it's so wide and it's a little bit unwieldy with all the different uses in that area. And when we did a walkthrough of West 71st Street, between 71st and West 70th Street with DOT and the Block Association and some other residents, that, you know, the bike issue was a big part of it, and we discussed the corral. And so I think and I know it's not you guys, DOT, you know, the people on this line, but my aggravation a little bit is that we discussed moving the corral, the existing corrals in the middle of the sidewalk. I don't want to get rid of them. I'm not saying, you know, make no corrals there, but the part was to make that spot a little bit less congested. And so removing those corrals and then putting the, you know, another, corrals in a more, you know, off to the side part. And so I just don't know how there can't be any compromise or any other solution. Because putting that other bike corral and then keeping the bike corrals that are the problem is just kind of, I don't really understand it. And so I've spoken to Caputo a lot about it. I don't know what other solutions we could think of.
Yeah, of course, Erica, and I completely understand those frustrations. I will say, you know, the location that we were thinking, or, you know, the original location that you guys had mentioned on 71st and Amsterdam may not be feasible. However, that doesn't mean that we're not open to considering other options at nearby cross streets. So, you know, I'm happy to look into this with Colleen and see, you know, what other possibilities are feasible.
Okay, we have council member wants to speak. We also have, I think we have the Block Association on the call. I saw
Katina, she's on.
And also Nicole Painter from the bid. I don't know if either of you, after Gail, have anything you want to add, but get.
I would say, I think we need another walkthrough. We've done several with the community board, DOT, elected officials. I'll tell you why. Not only do we need to find the right corral location, but I don't know who's in charge of bikes that's been there for decades. There are some bikes that are attached in the middle that are no longer owned by anybody. I don't know this agency that can cut them and get rid of them, but that's part of the issue. So we can have all the corrals we want, but there's still gonna be bikes in the middle because nobody knows who they belong to. I go around trying to find out who they belong to, nobody knows. So I'm just saying it's multi-layered problems. I would just suggest another walkthrough so that we can agree on the location of this corral. And secondly, before we have our walkthrough, find out if possible which agency is responsible for helping us with the removal of bicycles that are no longer owned by anybody. I don't know how you determine that, but there must be some way to do that.
Sanitation.
Okay, it could be sanitation, but it might also be PD. I don't know.
Is there anyone from your office who know, like?
We can try to find out. But I think we need another walkthrough.
I think it is sanitation, actually.
Okay, but we'll try to get the sanitation should be part of the walkthrough, right? If it's sanitation. I'm just saying we need to, there's no way to kind of guess about which corral corner without having a walkthrough. That will be my suggestion.
Okay. I want to just make sure before we get to committee, if that's okay.
No,
Just
I
have,
just had a comment. I believe sanitation has a process of tagging bikes for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
And then if they're not cleaned,
Fine.
they're gone.
Good.
So they should do that.
That's correct. When they're individually if they're on a lamp post or on a bench, I think when they're bunched up in the middle of the
Like 10
corral,
of
it's
them,
hard
10
to
of them together.
identify. But that is
We'll
correct.
Tag them all.
Yeah. You wanted to recognize.
So Katina, do you have anything to contribute? I know you have a lot to contribute. You've generated a
Hi.
lot of
Thank
effort on
you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, actually a lot. And I think we're actually further ahead and ready to move forward than some may realize. Here's what's going on, because we look at that area every day. First of all, we were disappointed that it took 4.5 months for DOT to tell us that because of manhole covers, it couldn't be there. But since then, Eric, who might even be on this call now, has provided a lot of photographs and areas to show that there's plenty of room for a bike corral to be there. In fact, I went to the DOT website and found out that the corral can be as close as 3 feet to a manhole cover. So there's actually plenty of room to put one in there. And we know already, guys, where the corral should go. The fellows that use those bikes, they congregate around McDonald's, understandably. The corral needs to be as close to McDonald's in the curb as possible. We already know the exact site. And there is room even with the manhole covers, number one. The other thing is, as far as bikes go, yes, we're working very closely with our sanitation superintendent, Glenn Baldwin. Here's the problem. I think we need to think about changing the law to lower the threshold for which bikes can be removed. If you looked at the threshold, you won't believe it. They have to be completely, totally derelict, and that should not be the case. However, I still think that as soon as we get the corral and can get those bikes off of that area, we take a first step towards dramatically reducing the chaos in that area. And then we can move forward to our other ideas, which we've proposed, and I think people like, such as getting rid of those garbage bins, maybe working with Nicole, putting some planters in so that the area feels and looks less chaotic and might lend itself to less bad behavior. So I hope, I'm not even sure that we need another walkthrough, frankly, but I understand if the councilwoman wants to do that, we certainly can do it. But the manhole covers are no reason to not proceed forward with this idea, which we have been promised. So thank you.
Thanks, Katina. How do we feel about that? I mean, Gail said.
As long as DOT agrees, I don't know how they agree to this, that's what I mean.
It's obvious a walkthrough is the next step.
I think that's fine. I just think we've done a lot of walkthroughs. I think they've done a lot of homework, and DOT on the call right now. I mean, I think we really want to try to get some sort of compromise reached here. If that's a message you can relay back to Colleen, we're going to be speaking with her hopefully next week when she's back. But you know, a lot of work has been put into this, and it doesn't seem like a tough thing. Super tough thing to be able to make this minor, you know, this one step in the broader context of the curb. I know, Nicole, you're on. Do you have anything you want to contribute from the bids perspective?
Sure. I was just going to add that I can share offline, like my knowledge of how we deal with seemingly derelict bikes, and tagging them and then cutting them and then storing them if we're not sure. So I can share that offline. And I think obviously things need to go through DOT, but I do think it would be easy if they're not ready to do a curb lane bike corral, just moving the bike racks to the curb edge, like normal bike racks are on a sidewalk. But that's just my 2 cents. But I'll share my knowledge about the old bikes later.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
I guess we can do things in parallel. We'll try to do another walkthrough.
I mean, but I just don't think the DOT is gonna agree, and I haven't heard them agree, so you have to, you gotta have, you know, it will be good to have DOT and the Block Association agree at a walkthrough looking at it, if that's possible.
Can we get that commitment from you, Jackie?
Council member, happy to take that back to the team and ask Colleen to coordinate with everyone. And like some members of the committee mentioned, it would be a good idea to have sanitation join us on that walkthrough as well for the derelict bike situation.
Okay, ideally it'd be great if we could have that, try to do that in the next 2 weeks.
Elizabeth, Elizabeth, I want to point out that Erica has her hand up, and we have someone in the public, Eric Papa, with his hand up as well.
Sorry,
Okay, Erica
my,
and then Eric, and then we're gonna move on after that.
sorry, my hand was just up from previously, but agree with the walkthrough. The assembly member feels very strongly about this. So yeah, it would be great just to make sure that make sure that they're all this. We can look at all the spaces before we say definitively that nothing can happen. So yep.
Okay, Eric, you're gonna have the final word on this.
Yeah, I just wanted to back up Katina's points. And, we shared a lot of documentation this week where the DOT has, in fact, installed bike corrals throughout the city. So I don't think this is a dead issue at all. I just think that we need to figure out strategically how to get this done and get the bikes off the sidewalk. That's about it. Thanks for everybody.
Logging along with us, hopefully we'll get this move the needle a little bit through all this. So on the subject of walkthroughs, we're going to move to sort of not chronologically on our agenda, but on the next item on 72nd Street. This is a DOT question for just a minute. Is this about 72nd Street?
This is about the subject that you're moving away from. I thought the committee would have a chance to
Okay,
make a comment.
let's feel free.
This is with regard to the issue of derelict bicycles. It's only anecdotal, but I suspect that some significant number of them are e-bikes, abandoned delivery bikes. I beg pardon?
They're all e-bikes.
They're all e-bikes, even better. So this issue of the derelict e-bikes dovetails with an issue that this board passed on a long time ago to require registration. If these bikes were registered, it would be 1, 2, 3 to get a hold, notify the people, just like getting a parking ticket. And it would initiate a very tried and true process to get rid of them. It'd be simple. So I think that just raising that issue
It's a great point.
again,
Yeah.
and it should be part of any plan to deal with those bikes.
And since we have two of our, we have Erica and we have Gail here, is there anything coming through the council on registration?
We have some packets coming up, yes.
And there are bills pending on the state level.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Erica, is there any update there?
I haven't heard of any update there. They're kind of just focused on budget, but I'll get you guys one.
Thanks.
Great, thanks. Okay, thank you for. Anyone else from committee? Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next item. Okay, this is a quick one. 72nd Street, DOT, we have you here. We had talked at our last meeting about a number of things related to 72nd Street, had a conversation. There was going to be a walkthrough with the committee members. It had been postponed. We are awaiting anxiously a new date for that. Jackie, are there any updates there on a date?
Not on a specific date. I do know that Colleen is aiming to have that scheduled by the end of this month, or I should say for the end of this month. But I'll check in with her when she gets back and see, how we can send out those calendar invites as soon as possible.
Okay, so committee members, that's more of an FYI for you guys to be on the lookout for that. And then our final item is on the broader issue. Ken, your resolution is not related to 72nd Street necessarily, although the left turn intersections and follow up there. Again, this is DOT. I know we said we'd be putting you guys on the spot tonight, but we do have a lot of stuff before you that we're hoping to get responses on. So do we have any updates on the left turn situation, the left turn intersections?
And just to update the committee in case folks missed this email, after our last meeting, we put together our list that we shared with Colleen of what we sort of studied to be the 5 of the most dangerous left turn intersections using the parameters we had discussed in committee. There was a 6 that we felt didn't quite meet the parameters that we had discussed, so dangerous nonetheless. And we shared that with Colleen and she thanked us for that. So that's where it now sits with DOT.
And Ken, I don't know if you have anything.
Just wondering what DOT plans to do.
Yeah.
This information.
And I will say, on our end, I know that Colleen has scheduled a meeting with the Deputy Borough Commissioner, Jennifer Santinez, to discuss these intersections. I do not believe that discussion has happened yet, but once those conversations happen, I'm sure she will have an update for you guys.
When is Colleen back? Jackie?
I believe she gets back on
Monday?
Friday.
Right, okay, so when we speak with her next week, perhaps we'll have an update.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I guess from our end, to the DOT folks, these two items, the date of the walkthrough and the left turn intersection for sure. And most importantly is just hopefully getting a commitment from you all to join a walkthrough that we do about 71st Street.
And will that be the council member coordinating, or who would be coordinating that walkthrough?
Yeah, we just want to, those are sort of three really big priorities for us right now. If you could take those back to Colleen, we'd be very appreciative.
Happy to.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so are we ready with the SBS folks?
Yes.
Okay.
Just
Are
let
we
me.
ready to move to that agenda item committee?
Site, you okay, Jamie? Yeah, very.
All right, over to you. Alexander, is that, you go by Alexandra? I heard.
Yeah, Alexander. Yeah, some people refer to me as Sasha. Alexander, say same person. Let me just share the PDF with you all. Can I please get verbal confirmation that you can see everything?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out to meet with us. And sorry about all those delays earlier. I'm here to talk to you about a capital project that we have coming up along 79th Street, which is focused on making upgrades to, from like a transit perspective and from a pedestrian safety perspective. The way I'd like to do today's breakdown is I'll give you some background to work that DOT has done previously back in 2017. I'll give you some statistics about how that work has performed, how it's still performing, and kind of also what we would like to attempt to improve. And then I'll run you through what this capital project is actually trying to do. And I'll finish with giving you, some big kind of high level dates of when the bigger milestones of this project will be taking place. So I don't think I need to talk too much about this. You're all probably actually more familiar with the street than I am, but 79th Street is a major corridor in Manhattan. And at least, from what I'm concerned, it's also a major transit corridor. It hosts the M79 SBS, which is one of the busiest crosstown bus routes in Manhattan, especially from like ridership per mile perspective. You've got about 14,000 daily riders. And it's so busy and important because it connects to 4 subway lines, which are running north and south to Manhattan. And it also connects you to 16 other bus routes, including the M15. On top of that, on top of it being a big transit corridor, there are tons of cultural destinations along this corridor or adjacent to it. I'm sure you're all familiar with the American Museum of Natural History, Central Park, Riverside Park. But with all of this, activity and all of these visitors and just, all this action happening on 79th, it's also unfortunately not the safest corridor in the city. And it ranks in the top 33% as far as KSI, which is the metric we use, killed or severely injured. Like 26 people in the last 5 years, that's far too high a number for our taste. And although that is an improvement on, years before, we still want to get that down to 0. Not in your district, but on the east side, there was a fatality, I think as recently as in the fall of 2024. So these are just things, right? It's a major transit corridor. And, we always want to make transit work better, but we also want to look at safety because we want to keep all the users of the roadway safe. Back in 2017, together with MTA, when we were launching the M79 SBS service, we implemented quite a number of in-house improvements that DOT is able to do kind of quick using, to temporary materials, or just things that don't need to be capitally built out. A lot of this work did also happen on the east side, and not all of what's listed here occurred in your district, but this, project, kind of the launching of the SBS involved installing bus queue jumps, which lets buses get, across the street faster than kind of competing traffic. We put in one full bus lane, like one full block of bus lane, and this is in your district. That's over there by the museum. A big thing that was done was improving the signal timing to kind of, flow more with the transit needs. There was also an element to spacing out the stops a bit more, as well as lots of amenities that were installed and kind of new ways of paying for the bus was a big thing that SBS was doing, where you could pay for the bus before getting on, and this helped speed up the whole boarding process and thus speed up the way the bus was running. So we did that in 2017, and it was a big undertaking, and it had quite a few successes. Do also please take into context, on a route like this that's kind of short and there's, major intersections every block, some of these numbers might not scream like huge success to you, but kind of every improvement is an improvement as far as we're concerned. And this presentation will be shared with you also after I'm done, if you want to look closer into the numbers. But within the first year of operation, we saw, the rates of bus bunching go down, bus dwell times went down, mostly due to the off-board fare payment. Bus ridership actually increased. That was another one of the goals of this whole program, to get more folks back onto the M79. It also had improvements on actual just, non-transit traffic along the corridor. Bus speeds improved. And what I personally think is the biggest win of the whole project is that the number of late buses decreased significantly. So, when folks are looking at like on-time arrival, right, the bus is scheduled to arrive at whatever, 6:30, it arrives at 6:30. And these things have held up, right? It's been quite some years since 2017. But if we look at 2024 numbers, the M79 SBS is still running, again, what I said in the beginning, put this into perspective, right? 0.9 miles faster or 1 mile faster per hour might seem, like I'm making a joke to you, but on routes that are this short and are stopping this frequently, that is actually, it compounds over time. So it is still an improvement, and it's running faster than the average route in Manhattan. And what's an even better metric to look at is that the on-time performance, though we'd like to see it at 100%, it is at 80, which is higher than the city on average. So things are still working, but part of the reason we're doing a project is we think there's still some benefits to be gained and some improvements to be made. Before I get into what we're actually going to be doing, the other, and in a way, is like a bigger, more successful element of the 2017 work was that, and again, none of this exists in a vacuum, but still, numbers are numbers, and the corridor is a lot safer. You will also be able to look at this table a lot closer once I share the presentation. But if you look at the averages if you take the average of the 5 years before the in-house work was implemented back in 2017, and you look at what the latest, and you look at the averages since, everything is down, right? Pedestrian injuries are down 63%. Cyclist injuries are down 17. Motor vehicle crashes are down 62. And if you look at it as a whole, the amount of crashes and accidents happening along 79th, regardless of the mode and who the victim is, everything is down. And even if you look kind of year by year, right? We had COVID happen, things kind of, data can be a bit weird when we go through something like that. But if you simply just compare, what used to be the norm, so up here, 94, 54, 30, and 90, to what we just had in 2024. And 2024 was not really the safest year either. But even, just looking at that, you can see that these safety improvements are, they're still there, and we're still seeing them. Of course, we'd like to get all of this even lower. And some of the ways to both, see more improvements. So the reason, not everything is like, and I'm talking a bit too fast for you, but with this in-house work, right, challenges still remain. We can't do everything, and there's limitations to it. So for example, if you look at, this photo here, this is on Riverside and 79th. Just, when you do a painted curb extension, it kind of, it does improve safety. It does shorten the crossings. It gives more visibility to pedestrians. But until it's really built out, in a permanent material, built out on sidewalk, it's not really doing like its job to the fullest. And like, for example, here, if you look over, the years since 2017, there used to be, flexi bollards all around this thing. It just, things get ripped up, things get removed. Folks can park in this thing if they feel like breaking the rules. So until we build it out, it's not really functioning to its full capacity. And then from a transit perspective, you still have a lot of people abusing, the space that is a bus stop. And buses can't pull to the curb, which becomes kind of a boarding issue for folks that, are, kind of remote, have impaired mobility, or just simply, it's not safe to kind of step into the roadway to get onto a bus. And so the photo I have here is just oftentimes, folks will park or stand in a bus stop, or trucks will be standing in the while it's loading. So these are all things that we want to try to address with capital work to kind of get rid of these remaining challenges. So thank you for bearing with me. The capital project that we're bringing, it's for the full corridor. So all the way from the west side, all the way to the East River. And the numbers I have listed here aren't specific to your district. They're for like the entire thing, but I will take you through what's happening on NCB7 intersection by intersection. And what we're not changing, what we feel is successful, is that the bus lanes, where they are right now is pretty much, where we'd like to keep them. We're also going to be maintaining the operational hours. We think we've maximized the benefits there. And we're also going to be keeping the same traffic signals for the most part. Though this is something we can change kind of after the capital project is implemented, because that is something we don't necessarily need to do with the capital project to implement. So as we monitor this project once it's complete, these are some things we might consider changing, but for now, we're keeping it the same. In terms of upgrading, though, is pretty much every bus stop along the corridor is going to get upgraded. And what I mean by upgraded is that amenities that we couldn't put in with in-house forces will be coming in. We'll be updating all the bus pads. Those are the concrete kind of rectangular like chunks of the roadway in front of bus stops that just hold up a lot better to bus use. In addition, bus shelters where we couldn't put bus shelters, seating, wayfinding, ADA elements. So there's a whole list of things that can be upgraded at these bus stops. And we're going through the bus stop layouts now as part of the design. So I can't share with you exactly what's going to happen at each bus stop, but that's something we're working on now. And instead of just on top of just upgrading, we're going to be adding bus bulbs to a number of stops. Bus bulb is where we bump out the curb line to create a wider sidewalk and to also help the bus not have to pull into the curb. This both, helps with pedestrian circulation, and it also helps with bus service because it speeds things up. For pedestrian safety, we're going to be putting in sidewalk extensions at not pretty much every intersection, but at quite a few. And I'll get into that. And then there's also just the, urban design, streetscape, landscaping element to this, where we'll be putting in street trees where we can. And we will also be installing what are called stormwater infiltration basins, which are effectively like expanded tree pits with special, DEP, like green infrastructure elements to them, which just kind of help deal with excessive runoff when we get these heavy rains that we've been having the last 3 years. This bus stop that we've kind of sketched up isn't in your district. It's right on the other side of the park, but it just shows you examples of, issues that exist, where we have pinch points on narrow sidewalks. This bus stop has no amenities for the bus users, right? There's nowhere for anyone to sit while they wait. And the bus itself also has, issues merging back into traffic because it has to pull all the way over to the curb, and cars kind of compete with it to get back into the flow of things. And with the bus bulb, right, the bus now does not have that issue. So that's like the transit win. We then are able to put in amenities. And again, this is just a render. We haven't yet decided if, we're putting benches here or leaning bars or bus shelters. This is just, a mocked up example. And then, also with that widening of the sidewalk, you kind of help with circulation. There's no more pinch points, and, folks waiting for the bus aren't in the way of folks trying to just get by. Again, with all of this, there's updated ADA elements because we just need to always meet the higher standards when we do things. And in terms of cost, with kind of contingencies included, the full project costs an estimated $60 million. That's at least what we're estimating it on based on, the design and kind of what things cost piece by piece. But if you break down that cost, specifically on the west side, the DOT scope of it, so everything that's happening above ground, right? All of these capital projects have an extensive underground water and utility aspect. So just from what I'll be sharing with you is the $10 million worth of work that we're doing on the west side. And let's get into this intersection by intersection. So starting on the west side, and there is one element that's not shown here. There is also a proposed water infiltration base coming here that we're still deciding on. But to walk you through what you see here is, if you recall the photo I was showing you when I was talking about the challenges, that's this southwest corner of Riverside and 79th. So the two painted spaces there are going to be built out in materials matching what the park has there. So it'll become, full-fledged sidewalk, and we'll gain safety benefits from that. On the opposite side, whenever we touch an intersection, we generally like to improve all four corners of it. So on the northeast and southeast corner, we're going to be updating the ped ramps and fixing the sidewalk along the curb, because again, all of this is also getting dug up to do DEP work. And then the bus stop that's here will be getting upgraded with some of those things that I had listed, and is getting a new bus pad. And then on the opposite side of the street, on the north side of the street, is where we're going to be putting in two of those stormwater infiltration basins that I was mentioning. As we move east to Broadway, or to West End first, nothing too dramatic happening at the West End intersection, but we're going to be upgrading the ped ramps at 3 of the corners just to bring them up to the latest standards. But then as you move into the bus stop areas on the block between West End and Broadway, both stops will be getting upgraded, especially the eastbound stop. It's a fairly narrow sidewalk there. It's a fairly busy stop. And we have the space to bump out the curb, do a bus bulb. So we will be doing that there. We're not able to do a bus bulb on the north side here, but we're going to be kind of clearing out the area and also putting in some trees where we can on that side. The corners, the northwest and southwest corner, are going to be getting updated for latest standards. You're going to hear me repeat that quite a lot as I go through this. The tips of the medians within Broadway, they'll be getting upgraded to meet the latest standards. And the same thing will be happening on the east side. Because whenever we touch anything, we want to leave it to the highest standard, because this is kind of what's going to be here for quite a number of years. Continuing east, but switching the way we're looking, right? So if we're looking at Amsterdam now, so we're kind of like, we've rotated, and so 79th is here. And as I said, I was going to repeat, right? We're updating the ped ramps on all 4 corners at all of these 3 intersections on Amsterdam. So at 81st, 80th, and 79th. But then in addition to that, we are doing 2 more bus bulbs, one on Amsterdam, northbound, and then one on the eastbound side, the westbound side of 79th. Similar things, right? Doing these bus bulbs, it helps with pedestrian circulation, and it gives us more room for amenities, and it also helps, buses speed up their service so they're not pulling in and out, trying to compete with traffic to go about their way. Continuing east along 79th, once we get to Columbus, here, right, where we're going to be redoing the sidewalk along the museum side, and we're doing some extensions along the west side of Columbus Avenue. Sidewalk extensions, they both help pedestrians be more visible while they're waiting to cross, and it also gives us, however many feet shorter of a crossing, which is always helpful. The northwest corner is getting a tree, and it's also getting its ramps updated. As we get to Columbus and 81st, so now we've kind of jumped, so diagonally. Here we're doing 2 sidewalk extensions along the north side. Same thing, right? Trying to shorten the crossings and help pedestrians be more visible. And then the bus stop that's eastbound on the south side of 81st is getting upgraded. And of course, the whole sidewalk everywhere, the ramps are getting updated, and the sidewalk here is getting updated to match the distinctive paving that we have there. As we get to Central Park, the westbound bus stop is getting upgraded, and we're getting a sidewalk extension to shorten the crossing across the Central Park West, and we're updating and upgrading the ped refuge that's kind of in the transverse for folks crossing on the east side of Central Park West. Same thing, all four corners get updated with new ramps, a new sidewalk, and where applicable, right, distinctive paving. And I think there's one more intersection to show you. No, that was it. We've hit the border of your district. I know I rushed through that. I'm just mindful of your time. And this will also be shared with you if you want to look at it, in closer detail. But that's like the rundown intersection by intersection of what this project is doing. And to give you like a ballpark of the timing of all of this is the design. We're working on, the details of the design right now. We're looking to wrap that up by the end of this calendar year, so fall of 2025. Then once, it's pencils down and the design has been finalized, there's quite a lengthy procurement process. So this is when, DDC goes to OMB and and contractors bid on how much, they want to get paid to do this work. All of that, takes give or take 6 to 9 months. But our estimate at the moment is that in the summer of 2026, so next summer is when construction would start. And we would be getting back in touch with you well in advance of that. There'll be community liaisons, there'll be, lots of folks here to discuss like how, the phasing of all of this will work, and figure out all the, temporary things that need to happen. And because this is a long corridor, there is this scary number. It looks like this project will take 4 years, but keep in mind that it's not really 4 years that it's taking. And it's not like everything is dug up for 4 years. This is, we're doing the full length of 79th Street. So we're starting at one end, depending on how the contractor decides to do it, but usually finishing at one end, and then you kind of move along. So, yeah, that's how long it will take. And that's pretty much it. I mean, these are the current estimates for how long everything will take. Thank you. And I think folks have probably been waiting, but let's open it up to questions.
Thank you, Alexander.
Yeah.
Also just want to acknowledge our MTA expert, Andrew Albert here, who's going to comment in a second. We have started a new policy on this committee where we're asking the community first if they have comments or questions of the presenter. So we'll start there. Ira.
Yeah, I have two requests, really. I'd like to ask for continuous sidewalks because you're dealing with the sidewalks anyway along the direction of the buses so that bus passengers don't have to get bumped up and down. And they're doing this on the east side on 5th Avenue. So it's not new news. Also, I would ask that the soil height in new tree beds be no higher than 2 inches below the surrounding surface so that when there's a storm, those tree beds can absorb water and not have it run all over the place. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ira.
All right. Gail?
When you plant the trees, could you tell somebody so that we can have somebody take care of the trees? That would be helpful. So the community can help do that. They die so often.
Yeah, a partnership.
A partnership.
Yeah,
We can help it, but if we don't know the tree, then.
Yes, we can absolutely do that. We'd appreciate that very much. There will be, a guarantee period where the contractor that does the work is responsible for maintaining the trees. But after that finishes, absolutely. Whoever is willing to look after them, we appreciate that very much.
Okay. Jessie, do we have anyone online?
Yes, we have Steve Anderson followed by Daniel. I promoted both.
Okay, Steve, I have a feeling I know what you're going to mention, and it was going to be my question too, but go ahead. I have a feeling we're talking maybe about the same thing. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, well, I'll try to talk about something different, take a good shot at it. So the northwest corner of 81st Street and Central Park West is a frightening corner. It is a dangerous, scary corner. And the space there for the bus going west isn't even sufficient for the traffic to move west. There are cars driving into the other lane, the eastbound traffic, to get around there. It is a nightmare. So any way that this can be improved upon, and obviously we're having a construction project for the next 100 years as the elevated elevator is being constructed. We understand that, but that is an area that demands attention so that we don't wait until the catastrophe happens there with injuries to people. So I urge you to look at that carefully and to engage with our block association on 81st Street, that block, and help us be part of the process.
And just for my own knowledge, you're saying the main concern is that in the westbound direction, there's not enough room for cars to pass the bus when it's pulled over?
Absolutely. It's just a nightmare there, and therefore it's a nightmare for people who are traveling south from that corner or going to Central Park or trying to get from the bus to the subway stop, which is therefore a very, very congested area during.
Okay, so just like an overall like crazy, aggressive, congested
and
area.
When the Gilder Center was done, there was a study done on the traffic lights, and the remediation recommendation was to change the light by 1 second. That didn't do much, okay? But that 1 second, so we need a little more than just a 1 second change, I think, in the traffic lights.
Okay, we can look at the signal timing here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So was that what you were going to say?
A little bit, but I'm waiting until the committee for my chance. But I think we have a few other members of the community. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else, Jessie, from the community?
Daniel.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Turn 79th Street into a busway, modeled after the 14th Street busway, because that would increase safety for pedestrians and increase bus frequency and fix the whole street. That would really reconfigure everything and make it better for everybody who uses that corridor.
I appreciate that very much. You know, you're kind of preaching to the choir with a comment like that. But from our analysis, there is a lot of curbside demand along 79th, so we can't quite implement that in good faith. And
I would also say that nothing we do with this capital project precludes a busway.
This is also true.
Busways don't generally require much capital work. It's more about regulations and signage and restricting certain vehicles. So while we aren't actively considering a busway here, we hear what you're saying and also want to acknowledge that these capital improvements will have benefit regardless of sort of whether we proceed with a busway or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there somebody from DDC who wanted to comment? I thought I saw a hand raised, but maybe not. I saw it there too. Yeah. Okay, if not, and there's
There's a hand up.
Yeah, there's one hand.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Manon Clavel-Solander. It's my first time, although I've watched some of your meetings, it's my first time speaking here. I really appreciate you promoting me and being able to speak. So I just want to say something quickly because I live on West 81st Street. And since you're redesigning the whole corridor, there is a big problem on West 81st Street, which is that there's constantly vehicles, not cars, but e-vehicles or bikes riding against traffic on West 81st. And I don't know if you're aware of that, if the street association is aware of that, but I live here, so I see it all the time. Sometimes three vehicles in just 5 minutes. There's a moped coming down, there's an e-bike, there's a bike coming down, and the reason down the wrong way, sorry. And the reason why they do this is because when you travel down Columbus Avenue and you can't make a turn on West 81st, if you want to deliver something or go to West 81st, you got to go all the way around through West 79th Street. back onto Amsterdam and come up on West 81st. So as a result, especially, delivery workers, they take that shortcut and they drive down West 81st the wrong way. So I recall when I was looking at one of the report by Gail Brewer, a great report on solutions to some of the chaotic riding in New York City. One solution was to have bike corrals, so that the delivery workers, they can put their bikes there and walk that last 100 yards to their delivery points. So since we're redesigning that corner, West 81st and Columbus, I'm thinking it could be wise to think about that and maybe think about a bike corral. So that's my main point. I'm just going to take advantage, say something else, because I know last week you spoke about dangerous intersections. And with the JCC, we have identified one dangerous intersections, which is 79th Street and Amsterdam, where cars are turning left when pedestrians are crossing the streets. It's also an intersection I use every day. We have a lot of seniors going to the JCC, a lot of families with young children, and we feel like we hope this can be prioritized and made safer through daylighting or any other type of tools that you have. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. On the first issue of the bike corral, that is definitely something we can look into. That and that does not need to be capitally done. So we're taking notes. We'll pass that information on to the folks that do bike corrals. And then as far as 79th and Amsterdam go, hopefully again, we're still going through this, intersection by intersection, but hopefully some of the changes we're proposing at 79th and Amsterdam can kind of tighten things up and make it a bit safer. But thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Mariam. Okay, I think we'd now like to turn it over to the committee, starting with Andrew, to see if he has any input and insights, which I'm sure he does.
Yeah, I do. Thanks for this presentation, Alexander. One of the things we have done for years is ask DOT, and this is a way to speed up buses, is for transit signal prioritization. We have not gotten any of that yet. And if you want to talk about the M79 SBS, when that bus gets to 81st and Amsterdam, where traffic can go north or east or west, there is no reason for the bus to be stalled there. It should have the transit signal prioritization to allow it to make the right-hand turn on 81st Street and continue eastbound. No reason for it to stop there. Another thing is, and I'll talk to the Division of Buses about this, but on the announcements on the M79 SBS, when you get to Lexington, it says transfer to Lexington Avenue to the 6th train, but of course that isn't there, and I've seen tourists looking for it. It's 2 blocks. It's 2 blocks south of there at 77th Street. So I'll get them to change that recording. But I think transit signal prioritization would really go a long way to speed up many of our bus routes, and we've already submitted at least 11 or 12 recommendations to DOT.
Yes.
And nothing has happened yet.
Yeah. So I can speak to a little bit to transit signal prioritization. We are continuing to roll out TSP, as we call it, on multiple corridors. We've been focusing mostly on north-south Manhattan corridors. There is a challenge in Manhattan because you've got so many now north-south corridors and so many, high ridership north-south corridors and high ridership east-west corridors. So it's once you sort of do the north-south, the east-west, you got to sort of balance the time there. But we can certainly look at corridors on I'll make sure we have your recommendations. I'm guessing you've shared them with MBCO, and we can report back on which we're planning to do, which have already been implemented. Sometimes they get implemented and people don't necessarily notice because it's a pretty subtle thing. You don't actually see it on the street like other improvements. I'll also say, I think you mentioned a specific intersection and I missed it. Another thing we can look at, again, none of this is contingent or has to wait till a capital project, but we could look at using signals as queue jumps. So that's a little bit different or we consider it a little different than transit signal prioritization, which is just giving, buses, all traffic in the direction the bus is going, a little bit of extra green This is actually giving a bus-only signal in some cases where it's feasible. So that's something we can take a look at to see if there are any opportunities there. And then, yeah, what was the specific intersection you mentioned?
That was 81st and Amsterdam
Okay,
for the eastbound M79 SBS.
okay, we can look at that.
And something else that's going to help this route and several others are the installation of ACE cameras. That's something I was going to give in my later report. But the M79 SBS is one of the routes that's going to get that, and that should keep traffic out of the bus lane. Otherwise, they're going to get ticketed from the camera, taking a picture of their license plate. So that's going to help.
Correct, and not just the bus lane, but also for double
The
parkers
stops.
now and in the bus stops. So
Yeah.
there are additional capabilities of that program.
Do we want to go around the table? Does anyone have any comments or questions? I guess we'll just start with you, Doug.
I'll rapid fire. I think this is a yes or no answer. The offboarding payment system, the kiosks, when we go full Omni, they're all going to be gone, right? We're going to be removing them is that correct?
Yes, the SBS machines, well, yeah, they're going to be removed once we are completely done with the metro.
Yeah, by the end of the year.
All right, so
Not the end of the year. It's going to go, they'll be used into 2026. The sale is discontinued at the end of this year, but we'll be using them.
My question is eventuality. Okay, I wanted to just ask you to comment a little bit more on what the bluestone pavers are like, and also real quickly on the stormwater infiltration. Is that synonymous with the bioswale, or is it something different?
Do we have someone from DDC that could maybe attest to that?
Hi, yes, Rhiannon Weidowitz from DDC. So the stormwater infiltration for this project, we're using infiltration basins. You may have seen them around, but the top of it is basically either grass if it's in a grass area or concrete if it's in a concrete area. And it has an inlet in the roadway that brings it in, and it just infiltrates down into the roadway. So it's not the bioswale that's green that you maybe have typically seen. This is a newer stormwater management system that we're using. So it won't impact the sidewalk area that you have, but it will provide infiltration benefits.
And my last question is, I don't know what the timing is on the 79th Street Rotunda work. On how are we timing that? Is there any conflict between the rerouting of the Rotunda and this project? Rerouting of the traffic from all the work being done on the Rotunda. I assume you have that figured out.
So yeah, so we are coordinating with them, and construction will also coordinate with them to make sure that, if they're not done yet when the construction starts, that we won't be working in the same area at the same time. And then we are still working on getting the stipulations from DOT OCMC for this project. So I'm sure there'll also be parts of the stipulations that make sure that the two projects aren't conflicting with each other.
Thanks.
Yeah, I had a question about bus bumps.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't answer my question on the bluestone pavers. I just realized.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So I think you're referring to the bus stop on the east side
Eastbound,
that
yeah.
has that has the bluestone pavers. So that's just to match the existing distinctive sidewalk in the area. So we're not installing any sort of new sidewalks or different sidewalk materials. We're just matching what the area has.
So it's just blue paint, or is it the?
No,
plastic?
they're made of bluestone. So it's a type of stone. So it's like a historic stone. And
got it.
a paver. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
So as I was saying, until I was, anyway, bus bumps. So just so I understand it, you're talking about an extension from the curb. I think you described it as so the bus doesn't have to pull into the curb. Is that accurate?
Yes, it extends the sidewalk all the way out, usually in this, about like 8 feet, extends it all the way to where the bus lane itself is. And so the bus can just stop without having to pull in at all.
So obviously, we know 79th Street going west is extraordinarily busy because of the southbound and northbound exits from the West Side Highway. Will these bus bumps basically force the bus out into the driving lane?
No, because I don't think we're not doing any bus bulbs over there. There was only the 4 that I showed you on, there was one at Broadway.
I thought you said you were doing one at 79th and Amsterdam.
Yes, what is this? No, I mean, there is. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you because you were saying something about the West Side Highway.
Well, I said 79th Street from west to east is a very busy route because of the southbound and northbound exits from the West Side Highway. So there's a lot of traffic there. They can't make a left onto Riverside Drive. So anytime you get off at those exits, your first chance to turn is at West End. So there's often backed up traffic there. But my point is.
Right, I think I understand, yeah. I think we understand your point, yeah.
Yeah.
So from an operation, correct. So from an operational standpoint, we evaluate each, there is some balancing here, right? We don't put a bus bulb everywhere. We evaluate the traffic and we determine and model whether the bus temporarily standing in a travel lane to pick up passengers, which is the situation you typically have with a bus bulb, whether that has impacts that we can't accept. There's a little bit of a trade-off, right? In order to make the bus go faster, someone may have to wait behind a bus in this case, but improves conditions for bus riders, includes bus operations. And anytime we do a major project like this, we evaluate all those things as part of a traffic study. So am I going to tell you that it'll never happen, that you know, as a driver, you might get caught behind a bus? No, but we have these all over the city. People adjust, they switch lanes. And we're confident in the locations where we've located the bus bulbs that you know, any impacts or any effects on traffic will be acceptable.
Well, and Christopher, might I add a follow-up question, and dare I say endorsement? The weaving that goes on when the bus has to make its way to the curb and then back into traffic, and then cars trying to anticipate what the bus is going to do. And I say this as both a bus rider and a driver, not to mention cyclists and the rest. That's all eliminated when the bus does not have to make its way to the curb and back. So in some ways, it streamlines the traffic, even though the bus is momentarily stopped, right?
No, that's an excellent point. And I would also add too that, not to throw shade on MTA, but the bus drivers, as you know, don't always pull all the way in. Sometimes, you know, for various reasons, they don't want to get stuck in there. They're actually sort of effectively, you know, even if maybe the front of the bus is off the curb, the back of the bus is still in the travel lane. So effectively, a lot of that stuff is kind of happening today already.
They're creating their own bus bulb before it's been built.
You could say that, yeah.
I appreciate your point, though.
Yeah, with respect, I disagree as to the effect. You have a ton of traffic going west to east, coming off the West Side Highway in both directions. You have not the first turn, but the second time that a car can turn right or left is on Broadway. Typically, there's a line of cars waiting to make a left turn to go north on Broadway. You got cars now that are going to try and make their way into the far left lane so they can get around the bus and make a right turn going south on Broadway. I think it's a prescription for disaster. So I go on record as disagreeing, and I think it takes some more evaluation.
So one thing, Alex, maybe you can bring up the plan. I think the bus bulb at Amsterdam is going in the westbound direction, not the eastbound direction. And you're talking about the eastbound direction, correct?
I mean, you got the same issue, a slightly different issue, but the same issue. You got a lot of turning north, south on Broadway, which is obviously a very busy street. And you're forcing the buses into what essentially becomes one westbound or eastbound driving lane, because you have lines of traffic waiting to make turns.
So I would ask that you take note of Jay's quite important and reasonable concern. And it is noted also, Jay, that it's about, it is a balancing act. Too many, I'm a driver, too many cars. And I think we do have to move on in the interest of time, not from the topic, but to the next committee member.
It's the same issue going north, by the way, on Amsterdam, where you already have a northbound bike lane. Next to the bike lane, you have a parking lane.
Right.
So
right.
Amsterdam is already squeezed.
Yeah.
It's a truck route.
As far, and it's a truck
Well,
route.
you add the last mile
So,
delivery. right.
so to push the bus into what is often the only remaining northbound lane also seems to need further study.
Thank you, DOT, for taking that up for us. Ken.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask for more bus bulbs. Of course.
I'm not shocked.
The battle of
Diversity of.
the bulbs.
Makes our committee
Anything to make things more difficult.
Flower bulbs
No,
would be
no, it's not to make it more difficult for cars necessarily. It's a matter of trade-offs. And do we want to accommodate people who drive, or do we want to incentivize people to take mass transit and make it easier and faster to take mass transit? And we have this trade-off. And as a city and as it used to be as a country, we were doing the latter and trying to incentivize mass transit, because that's kind of the way the planet's going. And that's what's going to save us from this climate disaster. So that's the trade-off. And as they say, they've done this in other parts of the city, and the world has not come to an end.
I expect it won't come to an end.
Yeah.
But until we can make the subways accessible to trucks and taxis and
Well, as you know,
I don't think
as we've seen with congestion pricing.
To make the curb accessible to UPS. That's my only comment.
I know what you're,
You know my
why
comment.
did I say
Yes.
it? Why did I?
Okay, Ken, do you have any other items?
Yeah, well, okay, this is directly related to Alex. You mentioned that a lot of people, or one big problem is people parking at bus stops, which suggests that there is no other place to park, as we know we don't have enough loading zones on the Upper West Side. Do you have any plans to put in more loading zones to
Sneaky Ken.
So maybe the borough office can speak to this a bit better, or even Chris, but I know we have a pilot coming in right now where we are creating loading zones. I forget the exact bounds of the area.
Curbs, and we're working with the Columbus Avenue bid. We're probably not the right people that speak to that specifically. And again, that's not capital project dependent, but certainly we support that from a transit perspective, because you're right. There are deliveries that need to be made, and we want to see them made at the curb and not, in a travel lane where they would impede buses as well as other traffic.
And that's going to form a big piece of our discussions at the May meeting, not just loading zones, but specific to what Howard has been addressing about residential buildings.
Just a couple of more.
Okay, quickly, we got to quickly move on. We got another item.
Okay.
We have had so
On
much.
the 81st Street, a question of people going, cyclists going counterflow, delivery cyclists on 81st. Another alternative, which would probably be even more effective, is to allow counterflow for cyclists, and would probably require taking out a lane of parking on either side, one side of the street. But to do that, a lot of cities, we've actually asked for you to consider that on 100th Street, where for many, many blocks, there's no way to go west. And here, for many, many blocks, there's no way to legally go west. 2 blocks. Or 3. You have to go to-
All right, okay, next
Okay.
next item.
Well, it's not many.
And, and also, could I, since we have DDC here, can I just mention the lake at the corner of 90th and Columbus, which is after a good rainstorm, sometimes rivals the Jacqueline Onassis Reservoir. And I noticed some people out there a few months ago from the city. Are you planning anything at that corner, northwest corner?
And we realized, DDC, you weren't expecting this,
Right.
but just as a point of notice, can you look into that if you don't have an answer for us?
The triathlon.
90th and Columbus.
Sure, we can look into that. This is Marlene Nunez from DDC's Outreach Unit. I'll speak with Alexandra, get more information on the location, and we'll get back to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Housing
Yeah. Andrew? Okay, my only, up to you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, just the last thing I wanted to just mention was just to reiterate Steve Anderson's point about that 81st Street stop and specific to the elevator construction, how you're working with the MTA on their construction of the elevator versus the renovations that are going to be made along the SBS route, because it is really, really dangerous there right now. And a lot of just anecdotally, people in the community are very concerned about it. So just reiterating that, Gail.
There's 2 things. On 81st Street, we had the DOT redo the pedestrian walkway. I don't know if it's improved, but there's so many complaints. Number 2, this 79th Street Rotunda is a very long thing to go. Stage 1, it's supposedly including the bridge over Amtrak's track is supposed to be done now. Stage 2, new traffic configuration on the roadway level will start now. And then the worst part, stage 3, which involves both closure of the roadway level and exit ramp. And that would be everything. Right now it's open. Starting this summer, I don't know the completion, but you got a long time to go.
Feels like it's been happening.
Yeah, it's like
Multi-agency elevator construction at 81st Street will be done around September of next year.
Right, they had said summer of 2026 for the construction, so just thinking out loud there. Okay, I think that wraps things up for this presentation, unless there's anyone else from the community or board members who are online that I missed who wanted to.
No hands up. No hands up on the public, but I just want to ask Alexander if he could forward the presentation to us. That would be great.
Yes. Are you able to receive PDFs that are 10
Yes.
megabytes? Okay, we'll be forwarding that to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, actually, we'll probably be sending it to you because I don't have your exact email. We'll send it to you through the borough office.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for bearing with me as I rambled and spoke too quickly.
Oh, no, thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Take care.
Speak too quickly.
All right. Okay, so our next topic is a secondary street naming, also known as an honorary street naming or a co-naming. And as we may recall here, we had decided as a committee to align our co-namings with the action of the city council. So we'll be addressing them twice a year, as does council. And so Carey, who's been spearheading this issue for us, is going to remind us as a committee and also as a community what our new guidelines are, because we did pass the guidelines. We had a resolution sort of updating our requirements as a committee for a co-naming. So we're going to talk about that, and then we have a presentation that we will hear. So Carey, why don't you take it away?
Thank you.
I think he certainly deserves one.
Well, if we're going to do that, we have
yes,
new
we-
revised guidelines.
Yes, we did.
Oh,
Well,
we changed it to being
I
alive.
promise that I will make the motion. when the
He
time
has a
comes.
street named after him, Alexander Avenue in the Bronx.
There you go. And so I'm sure a lot of us recall this was a long process that we had engaged in, looking both at what other community boards had been doing, looking what our practice had been. And in January, full board approved a resolution revising some of the guidelines that we use to consider secondary street co-namings. And the purpose of that was really to give the committee slightly clearer guidance as to what criteria we were using when evaluating applications, but also to provide a more robust process for public comment and participation. And so there were 6 really, I think, key changes that we had made and that we now use. The first, we changed the petition requirement to require 300 signatures from people or businesses within 2 blocks of the street to be co-named to ensure that there was adequate public support. And we required that applicants post notices before collecting those petitions, partly so that anybody that had a thought about the application knew exactly how to reach out to the community board and to the committee. And so we had an opportunity to receive and consider comments. There was also a sense that we didn't want co-namings to be the first resort that people necessarily chose to honor somebody. And so we asked for a certification that applicants had made other efforts to secure an appropriate memorial and weren't successful before putting together an application. We also changed, as Jami alluded to, the requirements of who qualified. The biggest change was to require that an individual be deceased for at least 10 years. And at full board, we agreed that we'd consider individual honorees who had been deceased for less than that in extraordinary circumstances. Procedurally, we added a requirement that applications be submitted at least 4 weeks before this committee takes a vote, again, partly to allow for robust public participation and receive any feedback that we might want to consider. And finally, we said that when we vote, our resolutions would only stand for a proposition one way or another that these guidelines had or hadn't been met. That's it, not really on the substantive merits of a given application. And so last month at the end of our meeting, we provided notice to the public that this would be the first meeting where we would consider the biannual applications. And as of today, we've received 1 application that's before us now. It's from the McCourt family regarding an application to co-name the northeast corner of West 93rd and West End Avenue. We received the complete application and all of the supporting materials towards the end of yesterday. Those materials are on Google Drive for everybody to consider. And just so everybody knows, at the end of the presentation, partly to make sure that the application meets our requirements, that we actually have 4 weeks to consider it. At the end, I'll be moving just to table this until prior to full board so that we can let that period go and then have our.
When is the next city council hearing?
It is, I believe that we need to have all resolutions in from full board. I think it's by May 16th, so there is time to consider this prior to full board, have full board vote, and then get it to the council, I think, in time.
So their deadline is May so that they can vote April.
I don't know,
Correct.
I'll go with the 16th. I don't know if the 9th or the 16th, it's close enough. I can fudge it on the other end.
We
bottom line-
back time based on what Gail said at the last board meeting.
We don't meet again.
We're going to have we're going to have to
Special
meet,
meeting?
we're going to have to meet before the full
Yes.
board vote, simply to vote
On this
on.
motion.
Yes,
Which has happened before.
Which there's
we don't like doing it.
precedent.
That's just whether or not
Yeah.
the conditions were met. It's not.
Yes,
So
yes.
that makes it easier.
yes,
Yes.
yes. So the 4 weeks notice will have been that check box. will have been checked. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we can hear from the representative of, well, Doug, would you like to make the introduction? I think you
Oh,
do
well,
want to make
sure.
the
I mean, I can just say that,
I just happen to have been standing
I'm not-
outside
I'm-
in the court.
yes, I'm not actually the one presenting the application, but it's my honor to share some thoughts. I went to school with a member of the McCourt family. In fact, he's sitting right behind me, Connor. We went to elementary school and junior high school at Floyd, right? And I can't even do as much great service to Malachi McCourt's name, more than the family, but there's a lot of love and history and some really wonderful things that you'll hear about this man. And particularly in the time that we're living in with a lot of darkness around us from Washington and elsewhere, I think it's really wonderful to hear about some of the great things that Mr. McCourt did that really contrast some of the darkness. It's really about light and love. And with that, I would hand it over to anyone from the McCourt family that would like to give the presentation.
Yeah, I think we're gonna,
Mr. McCourt, would you mind sitting here, because this machine has to be able to catch both your
Okay.
voice and then we need to be able to see you.
okay.
Will you yet again say, we know who you are, but would you say your name for the
Sure.
record?
I'm Connor McCord. I'm a lifelong Upper West Sider. I've lived here for all 59 years, mostly at 680 West End. And 680 West End is where we are, it's 93rd and West End. That's where the street sign will be. I live there with my mother now, and I've lived there for most of my life, on and off for various reasons, but yeah.
May I say that I heard you say you wanted to try and FaceTime your mother? Did you want to?
I think she's on Zoom right now.
Okay, good.
Okay, so
The other thing I want to say to you, Mr. McCourt, may I call you?
Is her name Deanna?
Diana, yes,
Okay.
Diana McCord. Yeah.
We have about 10 minutes for each
Okay.
presentation.
Okay.
I hope that will be enough.
Sure. So
Okay, good.
Siobhan's gonna show, she's gonna speak at the end. Siobhan's my sister.
Yes.
And Siobhan currently works on 93rd. And
Siobhan,
yeah,
come on up and
Yeah.
sit with your brother. Okay, so take it away,
okay.
McCourt family.
And so we're gonna play a little video, I think, that really speaks to the place, which is my father speaking in the place about living in the place and how much the community and the area means to him. And then he's gonna speak about some of his areas that he touched on in politics and writing and acting and just being part of the community. And I'm so glad to be here. I think, you know, that it's a wonderful thing that we have the opportunity to present today. And then Siobhan, yeah.
Well, I'd like to say thank you, and I'm sorry for all the confusion. I misunderstood some of the requirements. He hasn't been dead for 10 years, but he's lived in the community since, I mean, I was born on 93rd and Broadway, and that was our first apartment, and then he lived on 93rd and West End, so he's not really gone far from there. And everything he did was community oriented, whether it was at the, you know, at the Symphony Space, he held salons there, he acted there, you know, he did a lot there, you know, whatever he could. He always fought for the Upper West Side. He had, when he ran for governor of the Green Party in 2006, he had his launch party at Symphony Space. So he was so immersed in the community, and he loved it here so much, and he loved New York better than anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I feel like that he you know, he was an activist. He was an actor, an activist, a writer, and he would talk to anybody, whether it was a child on the street, whether it was one person or 20,000, and he was fearless, absolutely fearless. I wish, yeah, I would love to be like that, because he stood up for the underdog, and he just didn't care. And he'd probably be horrified right now, but but you know, he was on the radio. He could converse with the other side very well. Bob Grant, who was a staunch Republican, Dad Maliki was the only person that he would have on to converse and have these back and forth with him, you know. So he was very entertaining, and he was given an award by the NYCLU from John Lewis, gave the Civil Liberty Award. It was one of his prides. And I'm so nervous, I'm sorry. But well, this
You
is
don't have to be nervous, just us.
So.
Yes.
So we'll listen to this and then.
How do I put on volume?
Oh, okay. So Maliki added to the good trouble that John Lewis talked about.
Yeah, yes. Mhm.
Get some audio? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, if you
Can you turn it
could,
up?
yeah, if you could start.
Do you want to bring the?
That made.
Yeah, but I just don't know why I'm not getting audio.
Go ahead.
Oh, now you can hear. Oh, if you're near the speaker.
Okay. Now we're hearing through two speakers. That's not the-
Maybe one speaker to the other, right? So.
Maybe turn it off.
The audio from the screen?
No.
It's up to 14. Okay, there's two
Oh, maybe you'll have to take it back there then, I guess, because it's reverbing off the
Can
speaker.
we just turn off one?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, I see.
With golden handles is. My name is Malachy McCourt, and I am of Irish descent. I was born in Brooklyn and raised in Ireland. I came when I was 20, and here I am, and I've had a wonderful, marvelous, loving life in this great city of New York. I don't consider myself American. I am.
I don't know.
This is dedicated to my grandchildren. I got two of them here. That's because of my humorous look at death and the absurdity of it and the abolition of the fear of death, I hope. My brother Frank was a great writer. He got the Pulitzer Prize. And the only reason that I was asked to write was because Frank was so successful. I never thought of myself as a writer. I was in the acting trade for years. But it's such great fun. And can you imagine? I cannot imagine that they give me money as well. And they put my name on the cover and my picture, and then people talk to me like yourself. And here I am, a writer. I've managed to get 10 of them out. And just between us, I feel like an absolute fraud. I don't, what am I doing? Talking to myself as a writer. This is when I ran for governor with on the Green Party ticket. I can it says there in 2006. I ran against Spitzer, and I did not win for some reason. But, he got the reason he won was he got more votes than I did. This is the whole McCourt plan at a gathering for about Frank. Frank's wake. Was that? Oh yeah, but we always have fun at wakes, especially if it's not your own. We put up these bookshelves 50 years ago, and I always wanted, my idea of heaven was to be surrounded by books because we didn't have any when I was a child. And there was a library, but they were very restricted. So here it is. And I just love the warmth of that, all these words. Brother Frank never hit 80. My brother Mike never hit 80. My brother Alfie never hit 80. I'm the only one that has gone over 80 years of age. But it is absurd when people talk about death being the end of everything. I don't know. But I know, I think whatever's going to happen, I'm going to die. That's me there, 1952, coming over on the boat. I was 20. I would like to be remembered. Well, I'm not sure that, I mean, it really doesn't matter what I...
Street sign, say street sign, Dad.
It might give me an eternal laugh if I could say, he made us laugh. I think a good, the last line is, and just remember, when you stop getting older, you're dead.
I think it's great that he's here, you know, he's 1 of 7 and to survive now. And I'm just really glad to have him around. And the third generation here, my kids, seeing him and spending time here in the house with him is a beautiful thing. It's just, it's been so when I see them talking in the morning, that's just really nice.
Very nice.
So then we have some photos
Very good.
of some of the things that he did. They're not in perfect sequence because I wasn't aware that we were gonna be here. So so I apologize for that. But it does show that's when he was in the Army and when he was a young fellow when he first came over. And that's him in AOC. He had a lot of friends. Everybody really, really liked him.
And so I think, and for, in terms of fulfilling the requirements of the community board, is that myself and Siobhan and Mark and the family members, we went out and we gathered those,
Chuck Schumer.
300 plus signatures. And we made every effort to comply with all of the requirements for the community board. And we also put in, it was announced with Gail at the memorial, and it was October, right? Sure.
May. It was in May. The memorial was in May.
In May.
Yeah,
Right.
and yeah. Yes,
Right.
yeah, and I had reached out to Jessie at that point and Gail to figure out how to do it. The mayor, this was not Mayor Adams, de Blasio, gave him the proclamation of the city for St. Patrick's Day.
So a little consideration, I think, from the board on I know that the new rules have been implemented, but that I think my father has been an extraordinary member of the community. And then I think the McCourts as a whole have been a supportive part of the community. Was a beat police officer here in the 24th precinct. My uncle Alfie owned a restaurant on 71st and Columbus for many, many years where I worked, and my brother, we all participated in there. Siobhan currently she lived on 81st, the issue where the bus is going on, and 80th and 81st. And then Siobhan currently works on 93rd and Columbus at Trader Joe's. We are entrenched on 93rd. Angela from Angela's Ashes lived and died at 93rd and West End between 93rd and 92nd. So, and what's so great is my mother is still here, and we hope in the next few months to see my mother be at the unveiling of 93rd and West End of this beautiful street sign. And we hope the community board 7 and the community members here will support that. And thank you so much, Gail, for being part of this. This effort. I've known Gail. I was friends with her foster son when we were growing up, and
me too.
Yeah, of course, and Doug, and we're we're all like part of the community here. So anything we could do, Siobhan. Yeah.
Well, just to say, there was just so many things that he did. He was part of the Willowbrook, with Geraldo Rivero. He went, and he fought for that, and he was very instrumental in that. He also started a group called the Irish American Writers and Artists.
Yeah, a lot of us went to that.
Yeah.
The Irish, I just loved it.
And it's not just for Irish, it's for everybody. And the reason why it started was because when Obama was running for president, they wanted to show the public that it's not just all that, not every Irishman was not very nice. You know, that they could support, that they were supportive of everybody, no matter, no matter, where you came from or what you did. And he really did. He supported he supported the underdog, and he worked hard for everybody. I would take him to a lot of his engagements, and sometimes there would be one person, and sometimes there'd be like 20,000, and he gave the same show. It didn't matter. And one of the things that Doug had mentioned, that there was a lot of things he didn't know about him till we did the memorial, but there was a lot of things that was the fight. He loved Riverside Park, so we took him to Riverside Park at the end. But no, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
Well, the thing that I think it's an amazing thing, especially in the climate we're living in, about the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Oh, the St. Pat's for All. So he because they wouldn't let gay people march in the parade on Fifth Avenue, they started this parade in Queens called St. Pat's for All, and he was very instrumental in that and supported it until the very end.
Great Grand Marshal.
He was, all the four brothers were Grand Marshals.
Yeah.
And he fought hard, and he showed up every year. It didn't matter what weather it was. It didn't matter, he always showed up. So, he did his best. He was very outspoken for sure, and he was on radio. He was an actor. He was a writer. He ran for governor. He did this New York rugby club. And one of the stories that I learned about him was a lot of times you didn't know that he was, when you talk about doing something unconditionally, and most people say, well, I did that, they sort of tell you anyway, but he didn't tell. This man named Sean McCourt called me, and he said, I just want to tell you this story, that I was an actor and he couldn't get work, but when he would go in for an audition, they would say, well, are you related to Malachi McCourt by any chance? And he didn't feel he had the right to say that. And he called my father and he said, can I use your name to would it be okay if I said you were cousin? And he said, absolutely. And one time in the summer, Dad was doing a show out in Cape Cod, and he actually got Sean McCourt a part as his son in the play. and this Sean McCourt actually went on to be in Wicked and all these great shows after that. So he would give people a leg up, but he would never tell. Like Black 47, when they started in the back room of his bar called the Bells of Hell, he never told anybody that's Larry Kerwin told everybody, but he didn't tell anybody. He gave it to them for free, and he did a lot of things he didn't get paid for. He just did it.
That's a hell of a name for a bar.
So we have your materials.
Okay.
We now have the 4 weeks that we need for this committee to review the materials. And I think everyone is here. The full committee is present. There are 2 members who are virtual, but they are present. So everyone will have the opportunity, has heard you. But if anyone did not, this is recorded. So we can, or if anybody wants to come back and see the slideshow again or hear you again, we can. And then in 4 weeks, we'll vote and we'll present the findings to full board, and they'll vote, and then,
And get.
And it'll get to Gail.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the public want to say
I
something?
guess well, I know briefly we'll have to. And also just one thing.
Do you want to say something, Gail?
I just want to
I
say
know
he
this is
was
very important to
extraordinary. If that's the criteria, it fits. The McCourt High School, I started, he helped. Example, the McCourt family still helped me. Your uncles all lived here. It's not just Malachi. So it's like a real family tradition to be on the west side.
And the dear old mother.
Yeah.
I think this is an extraordinary criteria.
100%. I would just add that the vote we are taking at the end of before full board will be on the checklist that we approved at the full board, which are the criteria that were mentioned in our board. So we do have members of this committee and of the board who in the past will vote against street renamings.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the merit of the applicant. In most cases, it usually has to do with just the fact that the idea of a street renaming people feel there are better ways to memorialize a person. So I wanted to make sure you didn't think that at the full board, in case it's not unanimous, I think we all are just wowed by this and agree with Gail that this is a truly extraordinary individual.
Absolutely.
Did I say
Thank you.
that correctly
Yeah.
enough? Our guru of street renaming.
I always went to, the Irish writers. I'm English actually, but I always went to that. And he was really encouraging to me. And it was just wonderful. And one day I'd gone home back to England, and I went to see him the day I came back. And he really gave me some insight about my sister. And I said, my sister's like seeing things. She sings spirits and everything. And he said, Barbara, she's drinking. I mean, well, really know about me. You have to sort of figure that out.
That's great.
Ordinary man.
Yes, on that note,
Extraordinary
on
man.
that note, we will
Yeah.
move on to,
Okay.
go right ahead, please.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I used to listen to your dad on WBAI.
Yeah.
And he was a riot.
Thank you.
And this was delightful, but it was nice to see the film, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very-
Yeah,
and for
thanks.
your comments as well.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
and the
Thank
family
you.
looks forward to your decision.
Yeah.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think we just have two remaining items. One is Roberta's. Yeah, we'll be quick.
No, I wasn't. But I'm telling everybody.
Yeah, no, the items will be quick. The budget priorities and the district needs are gonna start kicking in the coming months. I had this as an agenda item. I would really love, I think we both would really love if there's somebody from the committee who would like to help us. Maybe somebody who would like to take it on with us before we break in June. There'll be a little bit of work over the summer. We don't need to decide that now, but at the time of the May meeting, you can talk to us offline if any of you who have been through, I think all of you have been through, I think you've been through, well, you're on the budget committee, so you know better than anyone. We're not gonna enlist you
can't
because you're
enlist
doing
poor
you're
Carey.
doing our street.
Been on the
renaming.
other side too.
So, and also to the folks who are on the call, from the committee, just wanted to let you know that we wanted to give Andrew, there's obviously every month, there's big news at the MTA, including some news that just happened, I guess, overnight into today. So we wanted to spend some time talking about that and hearing from Andrew before we go into new business.
Give until October.
Yeah, that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Apparently, there's a deal to allow congestion pricing to remain into the fall. And it's clear that it doesn't necessarily stop then either, because the MTA is adamant and Governor Hochul is adamant that it will take a court to decide to stop the program, not a political decision, a court. And she's sticking really, really tough on that. But let me move on to the MTA has decided they're going to hire two amazing transportation consultants to proceed with phase 2 of the 2nd Avenue subway up to 125th Street. HNTB and ACOM, which are two very well-known and very highly respected consultant firms. And they have already begun the process of getting the Q train up to 125th and Lexington. You all know that it's not going to be at 2nd Avenue. It's going to veer west so that it meets with Metro North Station at 125th Street. So that's great. 43 stations will become accessible in the next capital plan. That's the most they've ever done in a group. It's amazing how much faster we're doing them, and we're doing them 3 and 4 and 5 at a time. So we're saving money. And as I think I told you last month, for the first time, there is now an elevator from the street level to the platform level on an elevated station, which is Woodhaven Boulevard and the J and Z line. That is really helpful to those who use wheelchairs, and that is going to continue. In fact, they're looking at New Lots Avenue, the end of the 3 line, as the next one they might do in that fashion. Ridership is up 9% over last February, so congestion pricing is definitely putting people, and the presence of police is putting people back in the system, and I've seen it really packed at various times of day. I haven't seen it this packed since pre-COVID, so that's a great sign. Congestion pricing brought in almost $52 million in February. That's like 2 million more than was expected. So it's like 100 million in the first 2 months of this year, which is great. That is all going to the upkeep of the system, new accessibility, new stations, new electric substations, which are really old and which could present a terrible problem on many of the lines.
Does that mean that there's still the congestion had, because they've raised more money, that it hasn't reduced congestion as much as they expected?
No, it's just bringing in more people are opting to still drive, because I've heard from many people who were adamantly opposed to this program. They're saying, you know what? I don't mind paying the $9. I'm getting where I need to go much faster and much more easily. And if you look,
but that's not a correlation.
That's not the idea.
Right, Andrew's question is, if the money's coming in, doesn't that suggest that things are still congested?
Or it's not reduced, or it's congestion, or it's just not reducing congestion as much as is anticipated.
No, it is reducing as much as was anticipated. In fact, if you listen to the traffic reports, listen to the waiting times at the Lincoln, the Holland, and the Queensboro and the Queens Mid. I mean, they're way down. In fact, and this is very exciting, because things are moving so much more quickly, the MTA is seriously considering doing away with schedules on the express buses, because they're making so much better time now, specifically on the Staten Island and Brooklyn buses to Manhattan. They don't want to hold the buses at the stop waiting for them to hit the schedule. They're just going to let them go.
Demetrius mentioned that at the.
Exactly, and you'll be able to trace it on your app or your phone or whatever. They don't want to hold it up because they're making better time.
Andrew, what's the status of the $15 billion in bonding?
Haven't heard the latest on that as of
Because
yet.
isn't that critical to the whole plan, the ability to get the 15, to anticipate all that revenue?
Well, if the revenue keeps coming in as it is, I think they will meet that threshold.
The ratio 11-1?
I think
what
it's
happened
dependent upon some legal certainty that money will in fact come in. That's the
So
issue.
are we not, so that's what I mean, so if in October, November, or December, so say we bond it or whatever, and you start getting into contracts for billions of dollars of future investment,
Right.
and then all of a sudden in November, the Trump administration just kills it, doesn't that put
It
us
would have
in
to be a court that would kill it.
a court that kills it?
Okay.
Or the
Kill.
Trump administration finds a way to
Passive
kill it.
voice.
Whatever it is, if it's done, wouldn't that then put the state of New York on the hook for billions
Yes,
and
it
billions
would.
of dollars?
And the governor has already said if they pull federal transit dollars out of New York, then the new state of New York would withhold money that goes to the feds in response to that.
Wow. And pay.
That's the nuclear.
Yeah, it is a nuclear option. It really is.
I've already got this.
Yeah, but by that time you could have another governor and another, I mean, just to me, it
A
just.
lot of
sounds like
things could
we're-
happen by
Yeah,
then, obviously.
Yeah.
Let me
That's
just
good.
go on, because I know
Yes,
we're in a
yes,
rush a little bit. Duffy says, crime has to go down in the subways or he will withhold transportation dollars. He was in New York and Mayor Adams was giving him a tour the other day. The MTA wanted to meet with him to give him the figures about how crime is down to beyond pre-COVID levels and show him the statistics, and he got out of there. He didn't want to meet up with them. So they submitted it in writing. Because of the lack of congestion, bus speeds are up on the M42, the M50, and the Q32, as well as express buses. A lot of crosstown buses are doing much better, and that's because there's less traffic. ACE cameras are, as I mentioned earlier, coming to the M2 and the M4 bus routes, and it's already on the BX35, the M101, the Q43, the B35, the S46, the B41, the B42, the S79 SBS on Staten Island, the BX28, the BX38, the B82 SBS, the Q53 SBS, the M86 SBS, the M79 SBS. Two of our crosstowns are getting these cameras. It's going to make a big difference. The M60 SBS, the B25, the Q5, the Q69, the BX6 SBS, and the B26. By the end of 2020, by the end of this year, it will be on 64 routes. So if you think you can block a bus lane or a bus stop, you're gonna get ticketed, and those tickets rise every time you get it. So they keep going up.
Can you repeat those?
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. Because of so many complaints about the new student Omni cards, which many have complained about because they were made of cardboard and they were getting destroyed in several different ways, they're going to be reissuing them by the end of this year. They'll be plastic, which is what they should have been in the beginning.
We put my daughters in like a plastic, like a baseball
Exactly.
card
It's ridiculous.
holder.
And they're really being used. Now here's a really terrible statistic that we learned. And this is relevant to Duffy's threats. The MTA carries almost 50% of transit users in the United States, but it gets 17% of the federal funding. What is wrong with that picture?
That's really bad.
And he's threatening to take away the lousy 17%? Please. I have been helpful there is a new subway map. I guess you've heard about that. It is sort of a combination of the Hertz and Vignelli maps. I did not like the Vignelli map because I thought it was so not geographically accurate, and that was the big criticism of the Vignelli map. As you may recall, everything was a straight line. I've shown them places, and they've gave me credit, which is very nice, of what places where this can be much more geographically accurate, and it is. So it is sort of a combination of the two. It is much clearer on where you can transfer, what stops are accessible and what are not, and everything. It is clear too that it is a weekday map, and it is not a late night weekday map. It is just a weekday map. And I've spoken to MTA officials and the mapping team, and we all agree the only map that's going to be worthwhile is a real-time map, and we are moving towards that. The electronic screens at all the stations will have this map, but you notice that changes on weekends. They don't show rush hour routes because it's weekends. There are stations like on the J line and on the 7 line where there are 2 stations where they're doing work to make them accessible and other work. And so you can only go in one direction at those stations. The maps have to show that. Not everybody is a genius in that area. You have to know what's serving what at the very moment you're traveling. That's what real-time maps will do. And I really hope that we're moving towards that. The new Queens bus redesign is scheduled to start June 29th, the first phase. August 31st will be the second phase. They are starting something new, these rapid rush buses for Southeast Queens, when you are in a neighborhood that's really far from a subway, but not so far from a Long Island Railroad station. And we've gotten lower rates on city railroad stations to get people riding. And we're really pushing to get a weekly or a monthly Omni ticket, which gives free transfers from the railroad to the subways and buses. So there's be no reason to drive. All your transportation needs will be taken care of. We hope that's coming in the new budget, but we're still waiting, obviously, as you heard, on the new budget. But Queens Bus Design does a lot of that. It does eliminate some stops. It will not be stops where there are traffic generators like senior homes, schools, hospitals, or anything like that. But they really want to speed up the buses. Queens has as many buses just in that borough as more than the city of Chicago has bus riders. Queens has. Alone, it would be the biggest bus network in the US, just alone. And finally, the last thing I will say is it was just announced the other day that a very important station, Delancey, Essex, on the F and the M and the J and the Z on the Lower East Side will become accessible. That is the next really one that should have been done a long time ago is coming. And I will just end there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And I will say the new map for tourists, I think Rockefeller Center to me is like a very good example of the way the map now explains which BDFM goes east versus west and things like that. I know it's not.
And you know what?
real time,
This map, I don't know how many of you remember a station on the B and the D years ago that was called 155th Street, 8th Avenue. It was the stop before you enter the Bronx. Well, it's now just 155th Street, although the tiles still say 155th Street, 8th Avenue on the station. But the mappers had it on the route continuing north. And I said, you've got to put that station here on the route to the Bronx. So we moved that around, and that's more accurate now. So I'm happy to help.
I have a very fast question, if I may. On the ACE cameras, there are ACE cameras on the 57th Street crosstown lines, right? The M31, the M57?
Did I name those? I forget.
I don't know if you said they're coming, but I believe that they're there.
Okay.
Anyway, I take that route a lot. And what I've noticed, and I assume that these ACE cameras are wide angle, because what I see bus drivers doing is staying off of the bus lane because it's occupied by 4 higher vehicles, private vehicles, trucks, and they're not making the cross on the lane, but they're also not behind the vehicle to possibly take a picture. So I'm just wondering.
I think they're somewhat wide angle, but I think they also can focus on the plate. Because that's what you want to see.
I'm just noticing the bus takes a wide turn driving in the driving lane, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of cars parked in the bus lane all the way across from the east side to the west side. And I just wondered if they're all getting tickets.
Hopefully they are, and they keep getting higher every time you get one. And after so many, your car can be seized.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have between the two of us, we have a couple of items of new business we'll go through really quickly. Nicole, don't leave us if you have just a second, because we want to catch you about open streets.
Yeah.
But before we do, we have just with Laura and Rita for next month's meeting, I know we've agreed to have a conversation about your plans for the pedestrianization. Those of you may remember late last year, Laura gave a very initial presentation, but one that was very well thought out, very well done, about plans for certain parts of Broadway between 70th and 72nd.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about that? I mean, we're going to bring it before the board with the committee next month.
Let's leave it for the agenda next month, but you received the plan that I sent you?
Yes, so that'll be shared and it'll be in Drive for you guys to look at prior to our May committee meeting. And then Howard, we talked about it many times here, but the sort of safe access to curbs from residential buildings. In addition to the loading zones, we have some international perspectives. Sofia Vala has agreed to perhaps bring in some insights and examples from her work. She travels a lot internationally, knows a lot about this issue, about how that's working. And then open streets, we got a notice just recently, the last few days, about open streets beginning on May 17th. So Nicole, do you have anything you want to add to open streets?
Let's see. Turn my camera on. Hi. Just we're happy to be back. We made a few changes. We're going to start an hour later each day, each Sunday. Last year and the past years, we started opening at 10. We're officially open by 11. We're going to start at 11, officially open by 12 to just, based on complaints from the neighborhood that we have gotten, lessen an hour that the farmers market and the Grand Bazaar and we are operating. We also have one date, it's the June 1st in the spring, where we will not be operating because there is a street fair on Amsterdam or Broadway, I'm forgetting which one, and then also a school festival for PS87. So instead of trying to figure out everything, we're just going to take the day off and not over impact the neighborhood. And the same will be for a Sunday in October. It's the Sunday before Columbus Day. There's another street fair, and they start setting up for the parade on 5th Avenue. And in the past, it's gotten really hectic. So we're going to take that Sunday off as well to, you know, be a good neighbor and try to lessen our impact as we can. So that's pretty much all the details I have for now. We're working with the Grand Bazaar and our businesses, and we'll announce more as we have more info. And we're taking the summer off. So Sundays in May and June, and September and October, minus those 2 that I said.
Okay, great. I think we have a few.
Yeah, just real quick.
If we get to the community first, so do you have a question?
Yes, I was just wanting to know what the rationale was for closing off Amsterdam Avenue between 106th and 110th Street, which means that the number 11 bus has to detour, and it impacts accessibility to 15 bus stops. Amsterdam Avenue is also a main route to Mount Sinai Hospital and the Amsterdam Nursing Home. There seems to be no reason to close off that street. It's next to 3 major parks and 2 public playground, public school playgrounds. Thank you.
Yeah.
Different.
And we can talk to DOT and the bid.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
bid.
that is not my open street, so I'll let you guys.
Yeah, we'll get back to you on that.
Let's talk to you after the meeting.
My only comment was last year, I thought we were fixing the north-southbound conflict. And I thought that the street fair operator was just gonna switch to the east side of Broadway, which is northbound, but I guess they opted to just keep on the southbound side. So Open Streets is canceling. I thought. It was
Yeah, so we spoke to them and it was gonna get complicated, and then for the spring on June 1st, the PS 87 school fair, which is on 77th, which would make it so that we didn't have two directions. And when that happened last year, because they had moved from a Saturday rain date to Sunday, it was just too chaotic. So I just decided to not even try to manipulate everything and just take the day off. So yeah, but we did speak with Clearview, and yeah.
I just want to add to that. It's my understanding that he did reach out. I think he didn't get word back, but overall, these are dates like they're really hard to lock in, and they've been happening for years. So
yeah. So that's why we're happy to take it off for sure.
One last new business item. Okay, so a member of our community asked me to raise this because he could not stay to the end of the meeting, and it is new business because it hadn't been agended or noticed. Apparently it's been raised with the committee before. It's a specific concern about a specific intersection. Gail, you may be aware of it too, right here at West 86th and West End. I wish that Kay was here. So the claim is there's dangerous right turn only lane in the parking lane at the southeast corner at West End and 86 that came in right before the pandemic. And that has been brought to the committee's attention on more than one occasion. We've got 2 diagrams that were given to us. So I'm happy to put this on the agenda for next time, or if somebody wants to take it up and go look at it and see if it is something we want to try and bring to DOT's attention separately. So it's a right turn, not a left turn. So it's not in our.
It's from West End on
It is from 86 on. No.
Wait, no, that's going
southbound, or is it a?
Well, no, you're going
The
north
diagram,
and making a
the
right.
diagram may not be, West End's turning
Oh,
over.
northbound, West End.
Yeah, when you're going north.
It's the southeast corner. It
Yeah,
has to be
that's correct.
Cars
Yeah.
coming north.
Right.
Yeah.
Turning it right up.
Yeah, go
Right.
east.
To go east on
86. It's a turn lane only.
Yeah, this is north, right,
What
right.
does it say?
A turn lane.
So it says, right turn only in the parking lane on the southeast corner of West End Avenue.
Wouldn't be a
Why
parking
is
lane.
that? Parking.
How could it be both?
Well, because I think what they did is, the
Maybe they
suggestion
cut
is they
off.
took the parking lane and you ease into it and turn the right.
Oh, so
I
they
don't
took
know,
out-
I've never paid attention.
took
Oh, they took out parking spots, so you basically go up into
Up
the
to the
lane to
corner.
make a
And I
right.
think that creates confusion and a dangerous situation.
We can look at it.
Yeah.
Photos were sent to District 6 at council.
I'm very familiar with this issue. Give me a diagram.
We have-
also.
Here, pass it.
Oh, I have one.
Beautiful diagram.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Anyway, I'm happy to look. So I live
Okay.
right here. I
Yeah.
can go take a look. But I
Just
promised I would bring it.
Go there right now.
if we have no other items, we can close. Just wanted to give a big thanks to Jessie, and we're gonna work on the technical issues. And I know it's constantly an issue. I think this is a good data point, not Jessie's fault in any way, shape, or form.
Thank
It's
you,
a bigger
Jessie.
concern, I think, of the board office that we have to think about. So thanks for everyone for hanging with us. We'll see you next month. We'll see you before.
Anybody wanted to move?
Yeah,
to
before the
close
meeting.
And just if everyone can be on call, and if everyone can be on call to be at full board, hopefully at 6 o'clock, I'm gonna try to vote.
Yes.
So that we
At
can
least
fly
I
by.
assume you'll send a reminder.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. And thanks to Carey.